How's it going, everyone? This is Scott Chris for BadLeftHook.com and SB Nation tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about what went down in boxing on Saturday. I was asked to do a Google Hangouts thing, so it really had, Connor hasn't been around lately. Kyle and Paul are both, UK time, so usual podcast guests and the usual 13th round guests just weren't available, so I'm just going to talk about things myself a little bit. If we saw, and I think you already probably know the results. If you don't, Manny Pacquiao defeated Timothy Bradley by unanimous decision tonight on HBO pay-per-view. Scores were 116, 110 across the board. That's the same score that I had scoring live for SBNation.com. I will say this: if Timothy Bradley could have fought any better tonight, I just can't imagine it. And it's one of those things where going into this fight, and this is kind of what I thought going in, Tim Bradley's a really good fighter, really one of the best fighters of this generation, and Manny Pacquiao just has his number. It doesn't matter if it's Joel Diaz training Timothy Bradley or it's Teddy Atlas. It doesn't matter if Teddy Atlas has sort of the great big speeches, and he did have a couple of good ones tonight. You could, hear him yelling like a rusty chainsaw at ringside various times late in the fight. Timothy Bradley is as good as he is, just not as good as Manny Pacquiao. Now, for Manny Pacquiao, if this was indeed the last fight of his career, his Hall of Fame career, I don't think he could have gone out much better. He could have gotten a knockout. Certainly, I'm sure he would have preferred to beat Floyd Mayweather last year and maybe have retired then, or maybe, been able to fight on from that, but having beaten Floyd Mayweather. But, look, the way it played out, Manny Pacquiao lost to Floyd Mayweather. No shame in that. Floyd Mayweather is the best pound-for-pound fighter of this generation. Manny Pacquiao is probably the second best pound-for-pound fighter of the generation. I think the only person that really has a great argument with that is Juan Manuel Marquez. So, look, if Manny Pacquiao really does retire, and I think at least short term he will. I don't know. Maybe he'll come back in a year. Maybe he'll come back in 2 years. Something like that. But he's getting old. If Manny Pacquiao does come back, I don't think he can do anything any better than what he did in this fight. If he comes back and fights Canelo Alvarez, he's fighting a guy I think is just, at this stage of Pacquiao's career, too big for him. Maybe if it was the 2009, 2010 Manny Pacquiao and against Canelo Alvarez, I think he might have been able to outquick him and get a decision. But the way it is now, I don't think Manny Pacquiao, as quick as he still is, as good a boxer as he still is, I think Canelo Alvarez's size, his body attack, his power still, I think at this point it's too much for Manny Pacquiao. And I think it's, foolish to really ask Manny Pacquiao to fight Canelo Alvarez, who's a junior middleweight, fighting a little bit above that at 155 pounds as a middleweight. And Canelo, as we know, puts on a fair amount of weight, between the weigh-in and fight night. So it's just, I don't feel comfortable saying that Manny Pacquiao should fight Canelo Alvarez. I don't really think anybody's even asking for that fight, so I don't think it's even that much of a discussion. If a Floyd Mayweather rematch is there, and I don't think it is, then sure, coming back for that and making hundreds of millions of dollars again, even if you're not making, what they made last time, and they probably wouldn't, there's still a lot of money to be made in that fight. So for that fight, I could see both of them coming back. For Mayweather, I could see him coming back to fight Adrian Broner. I really think that fight might happen. But if it doesn't, maybe Floyd Mayweather sits out all of this year and comes back next year when he'll be, 40 years old. It's just, the older these guys get, the less likely it seems, but at the same time, both of them still are good fighters. Floyd Mayweather is still one of the best fighters in the world, pound for pound, maybe still the best fighter in the world, pound for pound. Manny Pacquiao is still one of the best fighters in the world, pound for pound. He's not Floyd Mayweather, but he's still pretty damn good. He decisively defeated Timothy Bradley tonight. Timothy Bradley fought as well as Timothy Bradley could have hoped to fight. And I think that, Timothy Bradley has nothing to be ashamed of with that fight. Teddy Atlas has nothing to be ashamed of with the performance and the game plan that they had. Through 4 rounds, I had it even. After that is when I think Manny Pacquiao took over. I gave Timothy Bradley the 12th round, and I gave him the 8th when he did hurt Manny Pacquiao. But hurting Manny Pacquiao came between 2 rounds in the 7th and 9th when Manny Pacquiao dropped Timothy Bradley. So it's really just a situation where Timothy Bradley is very good, just not as good as Manny Pacquiao. And going into the fight, that's kind of what I thought. Until Timothy Bradley proves that he can beat Manny Pacquiao, I don't believe that he can beat Manny Pacquiao. And it's certainly, the way that it all played out is nothing that I didn't expect. But look, to me, I hope this is Manny Pacquiao's last fight, and I'll tell you why really quickly. And I've said this before, and I've said this a lot lately. Boxing needs fresh stars, new stars. We saw one of those today when Anthony Joshua knocked out Charles Martin in 2 rounds over in London to win the IBF heavyweight title. I don't care if Charles Martin is an elite heavyweight or not. He's not. But winning in that IBF heavyweight title means something. It doesn't have to mean everything, but it does mean a little bit. And Anthony Joshua is a guy who can draw a big crowd. He's a guy who's been able to create some excitement in the boxing world in the United Kingdom. And I think, with this fight on Showtime against Charles Martin, with the way he fights, with his style, with his persona, his demeanor, I think he's a charismatic guy. He's a good looking guy. I mean, he's got pretty much everything you'd want. We just have to see if he can really fight with the elite level fighters, because a lot of good looking young fighters have gotten to that next level and found themselves wanting in some way or another. If you put him in with Tyson Fury right now, I wouldn't pick him to win. I think Tyson Fury's too good of a boxer. I think he's too, experienced. I think he's too clever. I think he would give Anthony Joshua a terrible night, but maybe in a couple of years, having a world title to lean on while you develop, while you continue to get a little bit better, not the worst thing. And Anthony Joshua brings in crowds, and boxing desperately needs these new stars. And part of that is giving up the stars that we've had in recent years. Floyd Mayweather's gone, for whatever that's worth. Manny Pacquiao says he's retiring, for whatever that's worth. And I think it's, short term, it's going to be a hit. But I think short term overall, all of this has been a hit for the last year. I mean, we've seen general interest in the sport has declined in the last year. And I think to get away from that, to get out of that pattern, to sort of move on from that, you have to actually move on. And that means letting the stars from before go, letting them, be set out to pasture. And if you can create these new stars, and, with Anthony Joshua, he's one guy. Tyson Fury's another guy who's got a lot of star quality. Deontay Wilder. I mean, we're just talking about the heavyweight division, which in recent years has not been, very strong for star power. I mean, Vladimir Klitschko's been able to draw crowds, but he was not a special sort of, draw. He was just a really good draw. He was a big star, but not that sort of breakout superstar outside of boxing, at least not in the United States. And for whatever, you might criticize about this idea or anything like that, the United States is still the mecca of professional boxing. That's where most of the time, that's where the biggest money is. Hey, maybe this next generation, it will change that a little bit, but we're looking to make new stars. Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, those guys, their time is hopefully, in my opinion, up. Canelo Alvarez could be one of the leading stars. Of course, he's been sort of managed in that direction. Terrence Crawford with Top Rank could be another one of those stars. I think guys like Keith Thurman have a lot of star power and star potential that hasn't been fully explored yet. I think there are a lot of guys out there, and we saw some really good performances on the Pacquiao-Bradley undercard. Gilberto Ramirez routed Arthur Abraham to become the first Mexican to win a super middleweight world title. So, he's another guy. I think he's charismatic. I think he's a good-looking guy. He's easy to like. He's got a fun style to watch. Jose Ramirez had a tough fight in the pay-per-view opener, but he got through it, and he's a really fun fighter to watch, and he's a really nice kid. And he probably has something more to offer. The middle fight on the pay-per-view, Oscar Valdez, I think, has incredibly high star power and potential. He diced up Evgeny Gradovich, and that's sort of something I saw coming because, Gradovich has really not looked good in his last few fights. So, there are young fighters on the rise. The thing is, though, it's going to take time. I mean, it's going to take a couple of years for somebody to really break through and really become that star. For one thing, with Mayweather and with Pacquiao, they were both able to score wins over Oscar De La Hoya that sort of, pushed them into that superstardom. Nobody's going to be beating Floyd Mayweather to get that bump. Nope. And it doesn't look like anybody's going to be beating Manny Pacquiao to get that bump either. I mean, the losses Pacquiao has had in recent years have been a controversial one to Tim Bradley, who that didn't help Tim Bradley at all. If anything, I think it kind of hurt his marketability. He lost to Juan Manuel Marquez. He lost to Floyd Mayweather. Those were already established guys sort of at that level. Mayweather was the biggest star. Marquez was already a star. So I think there is the potential for boxing to now move forward, for it to really get out of the Mayweather-Pacquiao era and to change things up. There are some good young fighters out there. It's just going to, again, take some real time. But as far as tonight's fights go, I thought the show was – I thought the pay-per-view was pretty good. The no Trump undercard is something I hope I don't have to hear about much more going forward now that it's over. I thought it was kind of an obnoxious marketing gimmick, to be honest. I like the idea behind it, but I still think it's kind of an obnoxious marketing gimmick. But I think the three fighters who were featured there looked really good. For the most part, I mean, Jose Ramirez did have some problems in his fight, but it was still a really fun fight to watch. It was probably the most entertaining fight on the undercard, as far as there being a little bit of two-way action. I mean, Oscar Valdez beating the crap out of Evgeny Gradovich was fairly entertaining, if not competitive. Gilberto Ramirez routed, again, Arthur Abraham. I mean, that was pretty much a one-sided fight for all 36 minutes that it was on. But, I thought overall it was a good show. I thought it was, if Manny Pacquiao was done, this was a good show to go out. This was a good fight, a good performance to go out. If you have not been, and we're going to wrap it up here, or I'm going to wrap it up here. If you have not been following at badlefthook.com, please do that. You can get everything boxing at badlefthook.com. We do have a podcast 3 times per week. We've got some interviews coming up next week. We've had plenty in recent weeks with guys like Sean Porter and Leo Santa Cruz and, plenty of other guys. Talked to Gary Russell Jr. this past week. There's an interview with him up on our site. You get much more on Pacquiao Bradley 3. You'll get much more on the upcoming fight with Canelo Alvarez and Amir Khan. So join us there, and thank you for listening to me ramble a little bit here. I'm just kind of trying to get the hang of doing the video recap stuff, which I'm being pushed into doing. Not pushed into, but pushed to do. Not my favorite format, but we'll see how it goes. I'm just going to kind of be honest and roll with it from here. So anyway, questions, comments, concerns, let us know on Twitter at badlefthook or my Twitter, Scott Christa, BLH. Thank you for joining us tonight and today for all the big fights. Thank you for joining me this evening as it's 1:30 a.m. and I am dog tired. I'm going to be signing off. So we'll see you the next time we do this, probably in about a month for Canelo and Khan. Make sure you're going over to Bad Left Hook. Check out the podcast. Check out everything there. Thank you so much.